On this episode of Death by Bunjie, I'm going to tell you if Bunjie and I got a buck during the Pennsylvania crossbow season. Okay, I'm shooting this video indoors instead of outdoors with the vlog style videos that I had been doing for this Pennsylvania crossbow season, this 38 days of awesome, as it were. I'm shooting this indoors because it has been unseasonably cold and snowy, and we've had an awful lot of snow here, and walking around outside with camera gear right now does not appeal to me, so I'm not going to do the crossbow season wrap up outdoors. I'm going to do it right here indoors, shoot some other videos, so we can upload lots of videos here on YouTube on the Death by Bunjie channel. I want to start out by thanking you. During the Pennsylvania crossbow season, whether or not I got a buck is one thing, but we did have one other measure of success, and that was we reached 10,000 subscribers here on Death by Bunjie. I'm so proud of that and so happy that we have 10,000 plus friends of Bunjie out there, people that want to share crossbow hunting with me and with Bunjie. Now, one of the great things about this crossbow season was I didn't have any pressure like other years. Didn't have any pressure to go out there and shoot some does, fill the freezer, or anything like that. Because as you know, if you've been following Death by Bunjie, we had great success in the early crossbow season in Maryland, testing out some new broadheads, testing out some silencing gear on the crossbow, and had some great success. Shot 4 does down there in Maryland. Quite happy with that. Very proud of that success. And lots of venison in the freezer. I've already been making some great recipes, sharing that with some folks on the Facebook page. And because of that, we really didn't have any pressure, to go out there and shoot a doe during the Pennsylvania crossbow season. Instead, I can focus on some other videos, some other hunting tactics that I always wanted to pursue, stuff that I wanted to do and do a really good job with and improve upon. And that's what I did. In particular, hunting with the decoy was a big deal to me. Done a lot of that in the past, dabbled with it here and there, had mixed success. Those of you who follow the live streams here on Death by Bunjie will remember that a friend of mine came out to visit from Arizona and he was successful, shot a buck over not a decoy, but the hunting target, the deer-shaped target. He actually used that as a decoy and had success with it. Called in a nice 8-point buck, shot that buck, took it home with him, took part of that back to Arizona with him. And as you know from a previous video here on Death by Bunjie, I did have some measure of success with the ground hunting, with the decoys, that sort of thing. Hunting from the ground, getting close to deer. Over the food plots, I was trying to catch the deer as they're going to and from the food plots in the evenings. And I got a little bit of success, I guess, in a sense that we got close to deer and got some nice video footage. But of course, as you know, no shots were taken. Well, the other neat thing, though, during that early part of the Pennsylvania crossbow season, I did get a chance to sort of walk through the woods and saw lots of buck sign that I had not seen before. Now, those of you following Death by Bunjie know that over the past year or so, I haven't had any legal bucks on camera here in Pennsylvania. Here we have to have 3 antlers on one side. That makes it a legal buck here in this part of northeastern Pennsylvania. Didn't have any bucks that fit that description, but as the season grows closer, as you know, the deer start to move. The bucks start to travel a little bit. They start looking around for does, and all of a sudden we had some nice trail camera pictures that were showing up of different bucks. In particular, there was one really nice 8-point I was interested in. Be more than happy to shoot that deer if given the opportunity. And I had a few trail camera pictures of that deer, so I was happy to sit and wait for that opportunity. So in addition to the ground hunting experiment, this is a decoy experiment, and to make matters even better, Genevieve, my daughter, agreed to go out and hunt with me for 3 separate weekends, the last 3 weekends of the Pennsylvania crossbow season. Got a chance to go out there with my daughter and share the outdoors with her. And I will give her credit, she's quite a trooper, because we went out in the woods and she spent the entire days with me out there with that decoy, and we sat through rain like you cannot believe. And when it wasn't raining, it was snowing and windy. I mean, the last weekend that Genevieve and I finally got a chance to go out there, because of school she can't hunt during the week or anything like that, but on that last Saturday when we got out there, it was so windy and snowy that it was just miserable to be out there. It is not the best way to introduce kids to hunting, to take them out in miserable weather. That's something to be avoided. I think we want to avoid that if at all possible, but I will give her credit because she went out, didn't complain, and actually had a pretty good time. Looking back, she says she really enjoyed it, and I think she'd be more than happy to go hunting again. Now, we didn't really see any deer during those times. We saw deer on the way in, we saw deer while we were moving the decoy, that sort of thing. We did not have any success, unfortunately, while we were out in the woods, while we were set up with a decoy, no deer came in. And I think one of the reasons was we were doing the right thing, we were working it properly, we were committed. I mean, we were out there for long periods of time. The problem became that while we were out there, the wind was either blowing so loud that the deer couldn't hear the calls, or it was blowing toward us, because you want to set up and take the wind into account, and that wind was making the calls not carry as much, not carry as well through the woods. And when it was raining, to be honest with you, it was raining so hard, that's all I could hear was the rain hitting. I don't think deer could hear our grunt calls. I don't think when we were using the doe decoy that the deer could hear our doe bleats. Those cans do not carry through that kind of weather, unfortunately. Now, Genevieve had to go back to school. She can't stay out of school to go hunting with me. And the odd thing about Pennsylvania's crossbow season this year was that we ended up with 38 days instead of the typical 37 days of awesome. That last day was on a Monday. She had to go to school. I fortunately had the day off of work and decided to spend that last day of the Pennsylvania crossbow season in the woods. And I'm happy to say that we got some action. Bunjie and I finally saw some deer when we were using the decoy. I had the decoy set up as a doe decoy, took the antlers off it, not really much difference there, other than using doe urine scents instead of the typical buck scent that I was using. Or what is it?
It's doe pee.
Like literally the letter P. Sprinkled some of that around to give it a little bit more lively staging of the decoy, make it look a little bit more believable and smell a little bit more believable and present a little bit more believable to the deer. And sure enough, we got a spike to move through the area in response to some of the calls moving through. Now that spike did not approach the deer. Who knows whether that spike was interested. I think you got to catch the deer at the right time. Timing might be everything with these decoys. But he moved through it. It was neat to at least get that close to deer while using the decoy. Incidentally, this is the spike that I've seen an awful lot of. I saw him and showed you some footage of that spike in a previous video. That deer has called this property home for quite some time, and he's been part of my crossbow season this year. So I kept doing what I was doing. I kept the decoy set up, I made sure I didn't move very much, and I continued to call, continued to use the doe cans, the doe bleat call, turn those cans over, make some noise now and then, every 30 minutes or so, maybe even more frequently, in case bucks were cruising through the area within earshot. I wanted them to hear that bleat call so they would come in and investigate, see the decoy, maybe approach the decoy, smell the odors that I'd put out, smell the scents and the lures that I had put out, and then approach the decoy within shooting range. That was the plan. And it worked. I actually had half an 8-point, if you can believe that, if you understand what I'm saying here. It was basically a deer whose one antler was malformed and the other one looked pretty healthy, probably a 1 or 2-year-old deer moving through, cruising through, looking for does. Now, this is not a buck that I had had on camera before. I had never seen this buck in the area. And it just goes to show that during the rut, when the bucks are looking for does, they will move through and they will just sort of cruise from one property to the next to find a suitable spot. This deer did exactly that, moved through. I had a chance to see him move through and investigate the decoy, continued to sniff around, continued to smell around. When he was out of eyesight, I used the can call again and actually brought him back, and he investigated even closer than he had previously, came in even closer to investigate that decoy.
Stars, the modern way seems very far away from this place. Helps me separate time and space from the daily grind, from the life of mankind. Perfection is here, no matter what else we find.
So I decided to pass on that young buck and wait and see if the more mature buck that I had on the cameras made his way in. You never know. During the rut, anything can happen. These bucks are cruising, and if I turn the can over at just the right time within earshot, that buck might cruise into my location. However, he did not. Unfortunately, Bunjie and I finished out the Pennsylvania Crossbow season, the 38 days of awesome, without a buck in the freezer. That doesn't mean the season's over. We still have the second crossbow season, which by the time you watch this video will have already started. We also have the late crossbow season, and I've got a couple other things in the works to wrap up the crossbow season this year. So this is not, by any measure, the end of hunting here on Death by Bunjie for the rest of the season, and I hope you'll join me for those. I hope you'll subscribe. But in particular, I want to know, Bunjie wants to know, whether you would have taken a shot at that buck. Is that buck something that would have met your standards? Would you have taken a shot at that buck? Now remember, there's no right or wrong answer because it was a legal deer. And looking back on it, it would have made an interesting rack to hang on the wall. And it would have topped off my freezer and just given us a great video, great stories to tell, and great memories. So there's lots of reasons to have shot that buck, to have taken that shot if given the opportunity. Would you have taken that shot if given the opportunity? That's what I want to know in the comments below. I will see you next time on Death by Bunjie. Make sure you subscribe. Check out the Facebook page if you are interested in such things. And until next time, all hail Bunjie!
The second state is #1 in my book.